begin the current Daf, Mesechta Megillah Daf Chav Gimel. Begin on the top line of the Yomit, where we continue to explain the halacha of our previous Mishnah, which the topic of these parakim, we're talking about the Kriyas and Megillah, and with that we get into Kriyas HaTorah. We're talking about different days of Yom Tovim regarding how many aliyahs we have on those days. Which corresponds because in today's Daf. Something we discussed about in today's Daf are Kriyas HaTorah, the number of people who read from the Torah on very special days such as Yom Tov, Yom Kippur, Shabbos, and what the number corresponds to that number of aliyahs. Olam in yeshiva, whether a minor or a woman can be counted for the 7 olam. Mafter, the person who reads from the Navi, first reads from the Torah. The Gemara discusses Olam in yeshiva, whether the Mafter is counted for the 7 olam or not. Halachas of the Haftarah, including Esrim and Echad Pesukim, that the Haftarah has to be a minimum of 21 Pesukim of the Navi. And called the all matters of sanctity require a minyan consisting of 10 men. So that begin the current Daf Chav Gimel, top line of the Amr. Said in the Mishnah that we already had mentioned in the previous Daf, that on a regular Monday and Thursday, and Shabbos by Mincha, it's 3 aliyahs, Rosh Chodesh and Chol Hamoed, it's 4 aliyahs, and now we quote the Mishnah that says, B'Yom Tov Chamisha, on Yom Tov we have 5 aliyahs, and B'Yom Kippurim Shisha, and on Yom Kippurim is 6, B'Chuv etc., and Shabbos is 7. So the Gemara wonders, Masnit Mani, who's the title of a Mishnah? Because it seems to be Lo Yerbi Shmuel, Lo Yerbi Kiva. Why? Because the title went in a Brisa. The Brisa brings 2 different opinions, and neither one of them seem to be the title of our Mishnah. The first opinion says B'Yom Tov and Yom Tov is Chamisha. Okay, that's like our Mishnah. B'Yom Kippur Shisha, that's like our Mishnah. U'B'Shabbos Shiva, and Shabbos 7 aliyah is fine. But this Mandama says, Ein Peichs Imhen, Ein Masivin in the Rebbe Shmuel. You can't have less than the amount mentioned, you can't have more than that. That's not like our Mishnah. Kivam, he says, B'Yom Tov Chamisha, Yom Tov you could have, there's 5 aliyahs. B'Yom Kippurim Shiva, and Yom Kippurim there's 7 aliyahs. U'B'Shabbos Shisha, and the Shabbos there's 6 aliyahs. In Peichsimen, you can't do less than that amount. But you could add on to that. So says the Mamani, who's the Tana of Mishnah, and that is either Bishmol, if the Tana of Mishnah is Bishmol, who says the right amount of 5, 6, and 7, which is for Yom Tov, Yom Kippurim, and Shabbos. The problem is Kasha Tosefes. He says that you're not allowed to add on or do less. And our Mishnah said you can't do less, but you could add on. You could have, like we do, Hoysafis. And even Bekiva, who says you could do Hoysafis, Kasha Shisha B'Shiva, he has the reverse order. He says Shabbos is 6 and Yom Kippurim is 7. Our Mishnah said that Yom Kippurim is 6 and Shabbos is 7. So it's not like either one of those Tanaim. So whenever he says you're right, but Tana Rabbi Shmuel, it's the Tana of the Shiva Rabbi Shmuel, which is a different Tana. The Tana Rabbi Shmuel says B'Yom Tov Chamisha, B'Yom Kippurim Shisha, and B'Shabbos Shiva. Ain't person you can't do less than that. But you could add on to that. That's the Rabbi Shmuel. So that's who the Tana of our Mishnah is like. Says okay, but Kash Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shmuel. You quoted the Rabbi Shmuel before, who said that you're not allowed to have any additions, and here you're saying that you are, like the halacha of our Mishnah. So the Gemara today Tanoim, the Rabbi Shmuel, you're right. It's 2 different Tanoim according to Rabbi Shmuel, and it's a machlekes what Rabbi Shmuel actually held, and the one who is in the Tana of Rabbi Shmuel is like the Tana of our Mishnah. Says the Gemara related to this discussion, not Tana lahad Tanya. Who is the Tana of the following brisa that we learned? B'Yom Tov ma'achrin lavai. On Yom Tov we come late to shul in the morning because you have to prepare the Sudas Yom Tov. Like that sounds brought in Mesechta Sefer. Or Maran Lotzis, you're also quick to leave shul because of Simchas Yom Tov. Daf Kenes and the Siddur. B'Yom Kippurim Maran Lavai, we're quick to come in the morning. There's no food to prepare. Ma'achalat says we'll leave late because we have no food to go to. Ub'Shabbos, you'll recognize this from the Zmir Shabbos. Memarin Lovely, you're quick to come because Shabbos the food's already been prepared from before Shabbos. So like Rashi says, better come early to say Kriyishma Kivasikin. So that's Memarin Lovely, not in how most people usually say Memarin Lovely to start Shabbos early. Rashi says no, Memarin means to say come early in the morning. Zuk Shabbos Kriyishma Kivasikin. Umemarin Lotzes, and quick to leave because of Eilig Shabbos. That's what the Brisa says. Says the Gemara, so who's the time of this Brisa? Lema, let's say that it's saying Me'achron Lotzes B'Yom Kippurim. Why are we late to leave Shul on Yom Kippurim? Let's say it's Rabbi Kiva. It's like Gavi Yisera. We just brought a machlekes before. Which one has the 7 aliyahs and which one has the 6? Our Mishnah said Yom Kippurim has 6 and Shabbos is 7, and that's how that's in, like we said in Tan Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva said the other order. He said that no, Shabbos is 6 aliyahs and Yom Kippurim is 7 aliyahs. Oh, so let's say that Bryce that says that you leave late shul on Yom Kippurim, it sounds a little yakish, and not that there's anything wrong with that. It sounds like for the extra aliyah, that's going to make Ma'achar Melotzes B'Yom Kippurim, that the one extra aliyah is why the Tana Bryce is saying that that's why they're leaving late in shul today, because it had an extra aliyah. Upon that you see this dua inyan taka for those who are noig that every little thing makes it different in the schedule. You see that we came home late from shul today because we had an extra aliyah. That was the ma'achrim alotzes. So similarly, it's like a Kiva. So you want no, from Rabbi Shmuel. Kiva says like Rabbi Shmuel, who says that Yom Kippurim has actually less aliyahs than Shabbos. But the nafesh shiur the yoma. It's obviously a long davening that you have on Yom Kippurim, so you're not going to be coming home late from shul specifically because of extra aliyah. It could be because of the longer davening. Now the Gemara says that we mentioned many different types of aliyahs you get on different days. So it says the Gemara, Hani Shleisha on the first wide line. Hani Shleisha, these three aliyahs that you're on the regular weekday, and the Shabbos by Mincha, and Chamisha, and the 5 aliyahs you have on the Yom Tov, and the Shiva and the 7 aliyahs you have on Shabbos, which Teza points out why we're not mentioning the 6 aliyahs regarding Yom Kippurim, because we could understand certain ones that why we would be adding on one more aliyah, let's say the 4 of Rosh Chodesh and the 6 of Yom Kippurim. But these 3, 5, and 7 connected me. Who do they correlate to? So Pligi about Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani b'chad yomei. Tosfos on the previous stuff explained that really the primary sources already said why we have, let's say, 3 because connected turn to be Miksuvim. But we're trying to explain how would it be manifest in the comparison the 3, the 5, and the 7. So Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani and someone with him, who's that? Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. Some say Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi b'chad yomei. That's Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani. Basically, who's the more chashbu one, and the other one that's with him that's disagreeing with him. Some say it's Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, not Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani. But even as it may, Chadam one says it's connected birchas kayanim. What's interesting is that birchas kayanim, if you count the amount of psukim, you have 3 words in the first pasuk. You have 5 words in the second pasuk, and you have 7 words in the third pasuk. So the amount of words in the 3 Birchas Kanim is going to be the amount of how many aliyahs you're going to have on these 3 different periods, either 3, 5, or 7. Chadam, the other one says, it correlates to something else. It's Keneged, Shalesha Shomri Hasaf, the 3 who safeguard the threshold, Chamishim Midoi Pnei HaMelech, the 5 that see the face of the king, and Shibudoi Pnei HaMelech, and from the 7 that see the face of the king. What's this referring to? So Rashi says it's referring like we find in Megillah Esther. Shivas Sarai Parasamadai. It talks about in the beginning of the Megillah, there were 7 ministers of Parasamadai. Now, from those, that's 7 that we have on Shabbos. From those 7, there was 5 that were Chashiv, as it says in the end of Sefer Malachim. That's the 5 we have on Yom Tov. And we have 3 Shemei Hasaf, which is brought at the end of Sefer Malachim, which they protect the threshold of the palace, correlating to them, which is like a Dvar Malchus, it's that of royalty. So therefore, that's how we fashioned our aliyahs after those who get to behold the face of the king, which Tosfos finds it difficult because that's by Achashverosh, and it's difficult that he says Chacham are going to institute something that's connected to Rasha. So he based on different psukim that also have the same idea about these different types of those who are able to see the face of the king, and be that as made, that's where we find the numbers 3, 5, 7. Now, Tani, so again, it's either connected Beres Kayanim or it's connected those who are servants for the king. Similarly, Tani Rav Yosef, he says, Gimel Chamisha B'Shabbat, he says these 3 and 5 and 7 again, which the aliyah is on a weekday or on the Yom Tov or on Shabbos, that correlates to Shleish Hashem Yasaf, to the 3 who safeguard the threshold, Chamisha B'Rei Pnei HaMelech, 5 from those who see the face of the king, the more chashuvah ones, and you have Shibud B'Rei Pnei HaMelech, you have the 7 who see the face of the king. That's the aliyahs that we have on weekday, Yom Tov, and on Shabbos. Amalei Abayis said to Rav Yisrael when he taught him this brayso, he says, Ada Idna, up until now, my time on Parshas Lamar, why didn't the master ever tell us that that's why we have these? I always wondered, why do we have 3 aliyahs on the weekday, and 5 on Yom Tov, and 7 on Shabbos? What's his Andrish? So Amalei, so Rav Yisrael said to him, I didn't know you needed to know the reason. Did you ever ask me something? I didn't tell you. How am I supposed to know this is what you need? Normally, Yaakov Minah, Rabbi Yehuda, which Tosfos says not to have the gears of Minah, because that would sound like he was a min and a heretic. And if that was the case, we wouldn't mention his name, Kashem Yisham Yerkov, he says that the Girsa Yaakov made Tzah. He said to Rabbi Yehuda, Hani Shish Yom Kippurim Keneged Mi. Says we mentioned others, but why didn't we didn't say why the 6 of Yom Kippurim? So Malay says that's Keneged Shisha Sha'amdu B'Mina Shel Ezra V'Shishim V'Smoil. This correlates to the 6 that stood to the right of Ezra and to the 6 that stood to the left of him. Shlomo says a pasuk in Nehemiah. It said V'Yamed Ezra Asrif Al Migdal 8. Ezra the scribe, he stood on the platform of wood. That they made for the ceremony. V'Yamed Aslan, he stood and he made stand next to him. Matisya, B'Shema, V'Anoya, Buriya, B'Chilkiya, Umaseya, and they were al Yeminah. There were 6 on his right. His mother from his left was Pedaya, Mishal, Malkiya, B'Choshum, B'Chashabdana, Zachariah, Meshulam, and those are the 6 on his left. It says Gemara, wait a second, if you count that, Hani Shiva, there's actually 7 and not 6. It says Gemara, Haina Zachariah, Haina Meshulam, they're the same person. So it's not 2 different people. But my car Meshulam, why they call him Meshulam? The Mishalam Ba'ivod, because he was complete in his actions, and that's why they called him Meshulam. But therefore there was 6, and that's what the number 6 correlates. So again, these are numbers of Chashibus, and therefore that's the number that we use for Aliyahs in different times. Now, talking about Linda Braisa, going to the last amount of Shabbos, that we have 7 Aliyahs. So Hakol Olam Lamin Yeshiva says the Braisa, everyone counts for the 7 Aliyahs on Shabbos. I feel a cotton, even a child could get an Aliyah. I feel like even a woman could get an Aliyah. Allah Chacham, the sages said, a woman should not read from the Torah. They covered tzibur because of the dignity of a tzibur, and therefore that's why a woman does not get an Aliyah. Now, the following question. Maftir Maushi Yalam in Yeshiva. What's the halacha? Does the maftir, we know that besides the Aliyah, we're supposed to get someone that's getting off Torah. So does the maftir count towards the 7 Aliyahs? So is that 8? Meaning is it 7 Aliyahs and then the 8th one who is the maftir who he also reads from the Torah beforehand? Or do we say no, 6 Aliyahs and the maftir who reads before will be the 7th Aliyah? So it's actually machlekes. One says it does count, but the other one says no, it doesn't count. So the Gemara explains, the one that says it counts, though, Kari, because he reads from the Torah before he reads from the maftir. So it will count as the 7th Aliyah. The one that says that it doesn't count is Kedula. Because the Amma Ula says, why is it that the one who's reading from the maftir from the Navi, which they had made the maftir from the Navi because there were times they couldn't read from the Torah, so they made from the Navi, and then we kept that meaning from the Navi. But the one who's maftir from the Navi, why is it Tzach Shikha B'Torah Tchila? So why does he actually get an Aliyah, the one who's reading the maftir? Just read from the Haftarah. No, the reason why he reads first from the Torah is when they cover Torah because of the dignity of the Torah. Because if we just call up 7 Aliyahs, or however many Aliyahs, and then we call up the maftir, then it would seem like, okay, there's Torah and there's Navi, and they're the same. But we want to show that, no, you're coming up for a maftir to read from the Navi, first get an Aliyah, cover that Torah, and then you read from the Navi. Not that they're the same thing. Oh, so Bekivin them from covered Torah, since it's because of covered Torah, and not because of an obligation, so then obviously it cannot be from the count of the 7 Aliyahs, and therefore the Minyan L'Isaac, it can't be counted for the 7 Aliyahs, because it's not really be'etzim, it's not intrinsically an Aliyah, it's there just to go ahead and show chashivas for covered Torah, and therefore that's why that mandama holds that it cannot be counted towards the amount, and there's a discussion in Taisus regarding this, if we do count it or if we don't count it. I'll upon them, but that's what this machlekes is, if we count it or not. So the Gemara asks on this last opinion, Meisvei, from the following brisa. The brisa says, "Hamafter ben Navi." If someone reads the mafter from the Navi, laifches me'esem echad psukim. So when the haftarah shouldn't have less than 21 psukim. Why? Keneged shiva shakar b'Torah. Meaning, again, the Navi was instituted because at a time when they didn't let the Yidden read from the Torah, so they read from the Navi. So just like you have 7 Aliyahs, and each person has to have a minimum of 3 psukim, so that was what the Navi, when we read from the Navi, the Haftarah was instituted to correlate to that amount, so you have to have 21 psukim. Says the Gemara, now Ve'im Isa, and if that's the case, that you're telling me that the maftir does not count from the number 7, so really it comes out that how many Aliyahs do we have on Shabbos? Not really 7, you really have 8 Aliyahs, because the maftir, like we said, has to also get an Aliyah first. So Esther Ma'arba Havin, then you should have had to have 24 psukim in the Navi, because not that's 3 times 7, it's 3 times 8. Because you have to have the extra aliyah of the maftir.
But the maftir is a repeat.
Right, and it's an aliyah and it's 3 psukim. So maybe what you mean is what the Gemara is going to answer. It says, yeah, but even the Mishum Kabbalah Torah, since we just said that the aliyah, the maftir, is not be'etzim, it's not intrinsically an aliyah, it's not really something for the Kriyas HaTorah. It's just that we shouldn't equate the honor of Navi with the honor of Torah. So therefore, as we continue them in base, connect the on the base. So you don't need to have a psukim in Navi, 3 psukim to correlate to those psukim that the maftir is reading from the Torah, because that's not really an aliyah per se, as much as it is just that we should give cover to the Torah and not show that Navi is equal to that of the Torah. But Maskevil Rabba says, is that really so? The maftir has to have in his Haftarah 21 psukim. But we have a pasuk we have the Haftarah in Parashat Tzav, where it's in Sefer Yirmiyah, Oile Seichem Sefu, Dolehaben Esrim Bechad. It's actually only 17 psukim. It's not 21. But that we read that for the Haftarah of Parashat Tzav. So as the Gemara, Shani Hasan, they're different than Salik and Yonah, because that concludes the topic. If it concludes the topic, that's good enough. And if you don't have to read 21 psukim. Now, says the Gemara, Salik and Yonah, but where you don't finish the topic and it's less than 21 psukim, then you wouldn't be able to have such a haftarah. But Va'amar of Shmuel Bar Abba says, Zinnan Sagin, many times there's a Rabbi Yochanan, I was in front of Rabbi Yochanan, Chav Karina Nasad Psukim, where we already read 10 psukim, Amalan of Sik, he says, enough, it's over, you don't have to lane anymore. I thought you have to have 21 psukim, or at least the end of a topic. Says the Gemara, no, Malkum Shesh Tugum and Shami, where there is a translator, interpreter, that's different. In the Tanur of Tachlifa Bar Shmuel, he says, we didn't learn that you have to have 21 psukim with Haftarah, El B'Malkum Shein Turguman, only where there is no translator, which Taisa says that's what we actually rely on. We're not Matargim Haftarahs all year round. Where it sounds like if you don't have one, you don't have one. And yes, then you have to have 21 psukim. El B'Malkum Shein Turguman Paisik, but where there is a Turguman, there is a translator, then you could stop, because, like Rashi says, the Tircha de Tzibura, because it's already taking a long time, the Haftarah, because you're not just reading psukim, you're having someone translate. So then already after 10 psukim would be enough. You wouldn't have to have 21 psukim, but if not, yes, then you would have to have 21 psukim to correlate to the 7 aliyahs of the Kriyas HaTorah. During the halach of the next Mishnah, continuing on the theme of Kriyas HaTorah of the previous Mishnah, the Mishnah is discussing, so if you have a minyan that comes to shul, after the tzibur already said Shema. So the halacha is that one person could get up and he says Kaddish, Baruch Hu, and the first bracha of Kriya Shema. So and that's what our Mishnah comes to say, that ein person al Shema. The word person means like pras. Like Kedechel is pras, that means like a broken, half of a loaf of bread. So we don't break on the Shema, which basically means to say, like we said, this halacha, that they would like almost say they would do like the first half of Birchas Kriya Shema. We don't do that, and the ein oven of ne'ateva, and neither could you go ahead and have a shlich tzibur to daven for the amid, and the ein nisnes kapayim. Neither can you do Birchas Kayanim Nasiz Kapayim, and the ein karma Torah. You cannot read from the Sefer Torah in the tzibur, and again these are all getting to the same point that you need to have a minyan for all these things. And ve'em haftim b'navi, you can't read from the haftarah by the navi. Ve'en noisen maimer Moshe, you can't make maimer Moshe for a dead person, which is when they used to carry a dead person to bury him. So they would sit 7 times to cry over the dead person. And whoever wants to give a hesped, we give a hesped, like the Bryce teach in Baba Kamal of Kof Mabeis, that you don't do less than 7 mamadas and mashavas for the mess. For example, amdu yukar mamaydu, shaldu yukar mashavas, they would say stand, stop, go, stop. They would keep on going as they were traveling. And you don't do that Maimed and Moshe. And the ein ambrich zamelim, you don't say the bracha of the mourners, which we must explain what bracha of the mourners are we talking about. And neither betanchumi avelim, neither do we do consoling the mourners, which is when they come back from the cemetery. So they would stand and they would comfort the mourner, and they would make a row. Now the row, as we're saying here in the Mishnah, is not less than 10 people, as the Gemara says it's a nedna of your testament aleph. So to a birchas chasanim, the bracha that we make for the grooms, the Sheva brachas, ve'im mezamnim b'Shem, and neither do we go and make birchas hamazon with Hashem's name, Nevarach Elikenu. We don't do any one of these things that we said, pachas masara, less than 10 people. Which actually, this is where Taisus brings up the well-known thing that regarding when you want to, let's say, wait for a minion to say shliach tzibur to say chazar sashatz. This is where the mocker actually of many leniencies and not having to wait for 10 people. This is where Taisus discusses it regarding would it be 7, would it be 6, would it be even less than that. This is where in the person al Shema, because this is the halacha of where you need to have for the minion, for the chazar sashatz, to have 10 people. So actually Taisus brings that possibly one would actually not need that amount to actually do the chazar sashatz itself. But all these things we're saying in the Mishnah require a minion of people.
Only if it's really basur.
What?
Only if it was really basur. If there was 10 people to begin with, then.
Yeah, we're saying this. Yeah. I don't mean you wouldn't need a minion at all. I mean, we're saying like, let's say for.
They were not afterwards.
Yeah.
When
right. So
after there was 10, someone went out.
Right. So there's actually a few things. There's that's the Taisus vein person al Shema. Meaning not the one of that's another halacha that if you start and then people leave, it's actually also another one. And the next taste is the Ramas. Main person al Shema, that long taste is the next to the long taste that he goes brings the numbers and the place can bring it down those numbers regarding how many could you be makel for. Now ubekarkais. Now regarding properties of hektish, if someone's coming to redeem them, here also you need to have 10 people. And that's actually Tisha B'Koyin. 9 people and a Koyin to make that the 10th one. That's who you need to have to redeem it. And for other cases, when the person is similarly, if you're coming to redeem a person from Akdish, which is going to explain which type of person you're coming to redeem, that also needs to have 10 people and one of them being a Koyin. Now the Gemara says, okay, the Gemara goes through this whole Mishnah that we said you need to have a minion. So we do get this idea from that all these what we call Devarim Shebekdusha, that you need to have a minion of people for them. So I'm going to read Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, and he says, "Kadam the pasuk of Yikra, the nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael." Now I'm going to be sanctified amongst the Jewish people. So we see from here, Kadam Shebekdusha, any entities of sanctity, Krishma, Akriyas Torah, Chazar Sashatz, all these things, Lo Yeh Pachas Masal, should not be less than 10 people. Says my mash, but what do you see from this pasuk of the nikdash b'soich b'nei Yisrael, the number 10? So it says Gemara, the Torah B'chik, the Torah Brisa. Asik tech, we have to examine Shabbat the word teich. Ksevach says over in this passage, I'm going to be sanctified. There's going to be kedusha within the Bnei Yisrael. Says there's the word teich. Ksevach says within Bamidbar by the Adas Kairach. Says he badum teich Eda. Remove yourself from within this Eda. So it says the word teich with the word Eda. Now we're not done. Now we learn that Eda from a different place. It says Eda, where the Chesed Hasan says over there by the Meraglim in Bamidbar. It says Admasal Ed Harazais. How long are you going to have this bad this bad assembly? Now Malahal Nasara, just like over there, the Eda of the Meraglim was 10 because there was 12 Shvatim. Each one sent a representative. Yeshua and Kaleb were not part of the Atzas Meraglim, so they were 10. So Afkan Asara, so to over here by Kairach, when it says the Eda, he brought Mitecha Eda must mean 10 also. And it says Mitecha over there. So we learn now when it says V'nikdash b'soich b'nei Yisrael, when it says Teich means 10. How do we know that? 2 steps. We know it because it says Mitecha ha'eda, and it says Eda elsewhere, which means Eda hara, when it says Admos Eda hara. So that's how we know that Eda means 10, and therefore that's how we know that Teich ha'eda, Teich means 10, and it says V'nikdash b'soich b'nei Yisrael, that's how we know that a minion has to have 10 people. Now the Mishnah said, we don't make by the mess when we're going to bury someone the stopping and going of sitting and getting up less than 10 people. So you know why? Since that we want to say the Chevra Kadisha, he's going to tell the people, stand up, honorable one, stand up. Sit down, honorable one, sit down. That's the terminology that you use when you're doing this procedure. So less than 10 people, it's not appropriate to have the public representative go ahead and call them Yukarim, because what are you going to leave when there's many people? You have to have at least a certain semblance of chashibas to say that, and that's only with a minyan people and not less than that. Mishnah continued, it said, And we don't say the blessing of the mourners and the blessing of the grooms less than 10 people. Says Gemara, my brachas avelim. What is the bracha of the mourners? Says Gemara, it's brichas ruchava. It's the blessing of the first suda that's eaten in the street. I don't know if Yitzchak Meriyachin, this is brichas avelim ba'asara. The bracha of the mourners is with 10 people, and the ein avelim and aminyan. And the mourners are not part of that number because he actually gives a bracha for the comforters, for the menachemim, by themselves. He tells them, our brothers, those who do kindness, Hashem should do kindness back to you, and blessed is Hashem who pays back kindness. Now, the mourners get their own bracha. Our brothers, the ones who comfort you, Baruch Hashem Menachem Avelim, and he's not included in them. He gives them a bracha, they give him a bracha, so he's not part of that. So therefore the mourner cannot be part of the minyan. It has to be other people to be part of that minyan on the bracha that they say to him. So that's what we mean by the bracha of Avelim. By that Suda, they make this bracha of the mourners. Now, whereas brichas chasan ba'asara, but by sheva brachas, the bracha of the groom, the chassan is part of the minyan. That's that 10, but chasan of the minyan, he can be part of the minyan, and that would count to make sheva brachas. Now we said in the Mishnah, the imazam na'alamosim b'shein pachas masar, to say elikenu, to make a brichas hamazon, you need to have 10 people. Why? Because keeping the bracha elikenu, since you want to say the words blessed to our God, to say this term that you add on elikenu, so what's the masar? Less than 10 people, it's not really appropriate to be saying that you need to have at least a minyan. Then the Mishnah said also about karkais, when you have properties of hektish, and you want to redeem them, you have to have tisha b'koin. You have to have 9 people and a koin. That's how you have your minyan. And the person is the same idea that he's also going to be. If you want to redeem from hektish, you would have to have a minyan and one of them be a koin. Says Mamanat Miller, where do we get this from? That you have to have a minyan and one of them should be a koin. So Amar Shmuel says because asara kahanim ksuvim b'parsha. By the parsha of hekdeshes, there's a few different parashas that talk about hektish. Yeah, and it says karhanim 10 times. You have 3 by the parsha erechim. You have 3 by when it talks about animals, and you have 4 by karka. Now that's 3 and 3 and 4. That's 10. So since it says the word karhanim 10 times, you need to have 10 people that are present when you want to redeem the properties of hektish. And now chad legufe, one of them would tell you that you need to have a kohen. But why does it say 10 times kohen? Oh, so it comes of idach that when the second time you mentioned kohen, have a mir achamir, that's like, okay, excluding after excluding. You already excluded other people. You already said it has to be a kohen. Why saying again it has to be a kohen? So that's a second mir. Actually, ve'in mir achamir echel rabbis. A double negative actually becomes a positive. So ends up coming out Tisha Yisrael Machad Kohen, because now from this point onwards, you're actually every time that you keep on being Mamayit, you're actually being Marba, because you already were Mamayit. You already said it has to be a Kohen. Why do you keep on saying Kohen? Oh, that's a Mir Achar Mir. So you're actually including, so actually the remaining 9 don't have to be Kohen. They actually could be Yisrael, because it's a Mir Achamiyat. And so therefore, that's why we say Tisha Yisrael Machad Kohen. You could have 9 Yisrael and 1 Kohen. Which Gemara says, why? You should say that it should be 5 Kohen and 5 Yisrael. And the Rashi explains, because since you tell me the reason why we're including Yisraelim is because it's Mir Achar Miyat, that's the second time it says Kohen. Now the third time it says Kohen is not a Mir Achar Miyat, because since you already said that the second time it says the word Kohen, it's a Mir Achar Miyat to include Yisrael. When you say the word Kohen a third time, now you tell me no, it has to be Kohen and not a Yisrael, which we already included by number 2. And talked about number 5 and number 7 and number 9, those are actually coming to include, not to exclude. Meaning to the contrary, to exclude, not to include, meaning it's being mamayed and saying no, only Kohen. And then you say it another time, now that's coming to include. Once you included Yisrael, now the next time it's coming to exclude. So therefore, why are you saying that 9 Yisraelim is good and with 1 Kohen should be 5 Yisraelim, 5 Kohen? So the more kasha definitely is a difficulty. Why are we saying in halacha it's enough to have 9 Yisraelim and 1 Kohen, should be 5 and 5? Because it's miyat, ribu, miyat, ribu, miyat, ribu, miyat, ribu, miyat, ribu. That's how it should be, and not the way our Gemara was saying it.
The Gemara is looking at
all the 10 mentions of Kahana, that you need to have a minyan. So you look at it as one thing. That's why it doesn't split it between one.
Right, means saying that it's one thing, so it's continuously.
Yeah, so you can't just start splitting it. Miyat and that, this is the Rebbe, this is Miyat.
So what are you saying? Each one extra next meat is another miyud achamiyad?
It's the same Miyat.
It's
the same Rebbe.
It's but how is that? When you mention the next kayin, why?
Because you learn from this, you need to have a surah.
Right. Yeah, obviously, that on some level, that's what probably the other mandama holds. That it's like, okay, we said all these other ka'anim, like we didn't need them, and we're saying they'd be Israel.
The more first learns, so you need to have 10.
It says the word. It says 10 times. Asar kam ksuv in the parasha.
Right, it's also a surah, don't forget.
It says it says the word kam 10 times.
Correct.
That's why we know 10. But it
That's
would be
how we know we need a minyan.
right. Yes, you need a minyan, but also that we said that from that minyan, 9 can be Israelim and 1 can be a kain. How do you know 9 Israelim? It says kahanim.
So that's where the Amit Achmit and the rabbis.
Right.
But when you start splitting it, then you can't learn from this that you need a minyan.
But I'm saying, but how could you say that there's 9 Yisraelim?
Same way. Amit Achmit and the rabbis.
Right, but in Miyud HaChamid, you have to count Miyud HaChamid. But that's what the Gemara is asking, that every time you already were Merabah,
It's one big meal.
it's one big Miyud. Right. That's obviously what the Tana obviously held with the Gemara. So you're like the Tanoim, and then the Amaram didn't hold like that. Yeah, something like that. So the Gemara didn't say it to you. The Gemara said kasha, which means to say that's always the terminology of kasha is always that it's difficult, but it's not refuted. The Mishnah said v'adam creates a man. And said, and when it comes to redeem a person, it's the same halacha. It says adam mikadosh is a person sanctified, which places is difficult. One says Toma Kanani, whatever. Akabama that when you have a person that's sanctified to come to redeem him. So Ravo says ba'ibid deme'alai. You're right. A person himself is not like a piece of hektish, but it's when he says that my monetary value is on me to give the hektish. So that's when we're, so to speak, redeeming the person, his value at least, and that's what we said we need to have a minyan of people. To tell them to learn the brisa. If someone says that my monetary value is on me to give to hektish, so we value him like a slave, because we have to know, okay, how much are you worth at the market to go ahead and redeem you and give your value to hektish. And the evidence is like a cost. In halacha, a slave is compared to property. It still says that you can bequeath them to your sons after you. To an inheritance of possession, which just like the achuza, which is referring to karka, the halacha is that you have 9 Yisrael and 1 kayin, so too an individual, just like an Eved, which is what we're doing over here when we're redeeming his monetary value, it's going to have the same halacha, which is going to be 9 Yisraelim and 1 kayin. Thank you to any time.